Hello friends, welcome to iQUANTA. Let us discuss this cat level RC set 3, and those of you who are already a member of iQUANTA Facebook group, they must have tried to solve this passage and they must have gone through all the questions. But if you are watching this video and reading this passage for the first time here, you can simply pause this screen and read this passage on your own, and then there is next slide. You have to pause here as well. So at both these timelines you have to pause and read the passage, and then you can continue watching the solution part. So now that you have read the passage, you must have realized that in this passage the author is actually trying to analyze for the reasons that were responsible for the collapse of Maya civilization. So just as we have this Indus Valley civilization or the Harappan civilization, in North America the ancient civilization was called Maya and Inca civilization, and like all the other civilization, these two disappeared from the face of earth, and here the author is trying to see the real reasons, the actual reasons behind the collapse of this civilization. So he starts and says that to summarize the classic Maya collapse, I can give 5 different strands, and here strands represents reasons, 5 different verticals, 5 different dimensions, 5 different reasons that were responsible for this classical Maya collapse. However, he acknowledges that the Maya archaeologists might disagree vigorously among themselves, in part because the different strands evidently varied in importance among different parts of Maya realm. So he is going to discuss 5 different strands, but the archaeologists may not agree with him because at different sites the importance of these different variants, these strands was different. Somewhere something was more important reason, at some other side the other reason was more intense. So that is why he is giving this kind of disclaimer. And here in the next paragraph, second paragraph, you can see that he starts this with a disclaimer that with those caveats, with this kind of disclaimer, caveat represents like red flag or warning. So with those caveats that I have got to say something, and no matter what I am going to say it. However, I do not claim to be correct, and I also understand that archaeologists might not agree with my explanation, but still, because this is my understanding, so I am going to talk about this. That is the author's tone here. And he says that he talks about one strand, and this one strand consists of population growth, and this population growth was so excessive that it outstripped available resources. So this was the first strand, that means first reason behind the fall of Maya civilization. Then he talks about this second strand, and he says that compounding that mismatch between population and resources was the second strand. So this is the second strand according to the author, that means the second possible reason behind the collapse. So and then he elaborates on this second strand, that the effects of deforestation and hillside erosion which caused a decrease in the amount of usable farmland at a time when more rather than less farmland was needed. So when more farmland was needed, because of over and excessive population growth, they had less farmland available for the agricultural purposes. And then he talks about the third strand, that this is the third reason, and all these reasons are according to the author, and at different sites different reasons would prevail. So the third strand consisted of increased fighting. So this was another reason that caused the collapse of this great civilization. So why were they fighting? Because of increasing population there were less available resources, and when there are less resources and more people, they will fight. So they started fighting naturally, and then they disappeared from the face of earth. So Maya welfare already endemic, peaked just before the collapse. So this warfare, sorry, not welfare. So this warfare was at its peak near the collapse of this civilization. So you know, Vinas Kale Viparit Buddhi. So you keep fighting when you have to disappear from the face of earth, just like people have started doing these days. So that is not surprising when one reflects that at least 5 million people, perhaps many more, were crammed is like jam packed, were crammed into an area smaller than the US state of Colorado. That warfare would have decreased further the amount of land available for the agriculture by creating no man's lands between principalities where it was now unsafe to farm. So, this warfare actually decreased the available land, farmland further. Why? Because there were wars, and so obviously there had to be some no man's land, no war zone, and this was unsafe to do farming in these kind of lands. So, ultimately they have lesser and lesser land available for farming. And bringing matters to a head was the strand of climate change. So, this is the fourth strand that the author is citing here, that also the climate was also changing. So, he is giving many reasons. First, population was growing, then this population growth was actually compounding, the population was increasing exponentially, the growth was very rapid. Then there were warfares, they started fighting, and above all then there was this climate change as well. So, some archaeologists might agree that the climate change was the actual reason, some might say that the warfare was the actual reason, some might say that overgrowth of population was the actual reason, but the author is analyzing all these reasons, and he thinks that at different sites different reasons were responsible. So, we cannot pinpoint the actual reason. And the drought at the time of, so he talks about this climate change, and what was the climate change element? It was a drought actually, and a drought at the time of classic collapse was not the first drought that the Maya had lived through, but it was the most severe. At the time of previous droughts, there were still uninhabited parts of the Maya's landscape, and people at a site affected by drought could move to a different site. But now at the time of this final drought, all the land was already occupied and they did not have any fresh land to move to. So, the situation was worse, and ultimately coming to the population growth. So, the population was so much that they did not have any land available when the drought came. So, they could not go anywhere, they had to stay at the same place and die ultimately. And now, this fourth strand has been given, that there was another reason, that just like today's rulers, the rulers in those days were also not very far sighted, they were like very short sighted, and they were engrossed most of the time in petty issues and not focusing on the real challenges. And this also became one of the reasons, that they were greedy, they were fighting among themselves, they did not care for the masses, they could not think very clearly for the benefit of their subject matter, they were just busy in enjoying their kingdom. So, they just looted the population or the public, general public. So, this has been mentioned in this paragraph. And finally, here, and it is actually, this part of the passage is a bit tricky, but fortunately you do not have any questions from this part. So, and the thing is that here it is a comparison is being made between the Maya civilization and the societies that came after that, and some of this comparison might also look like that it is a comparison of one Maya site with the other Maya site. So, what was they are trying to draw, the author is trying to draw parallels between some particular Maya site with the other Maya site, and then also he is trying to draw a parallel or a comparison between the Mayan society and the societies that came afterwards. So, these things have been done here, you can read the passage and understand, but when we go to the question part, you will see that no particular question is from this part. So, let us move to the questions. Here is the question 1. It says that according to the passage, which of the following best represents the factor that has been cited by the author in the context of Rwanda and Haiti. So, obviously, because you got two particular words here, it is better that you go to the passage and read this part. So, you will find these names here, the names Rwanda and Haiti appear here. So, you just read this sentence and you will understand the context. So, with those caveats, so that means with this insight and with this warning, I am going to say what I have got to say. So, it appears to me that one strand consisted of population growth outstripping available resources. So, it is talking about population growth outstripping available resources. So, there are two key elements here, one is population growth, and as a result you have lesser and lesser resources. So, these are the thing, and a dilemma similar to the one being faced by these two places and elsewhere. So, now let us go to the option choices, answer choices that we have. One says that various ethnic groups competing for land and other resources And option B says that various ethnic groups competing for limited land resources. The only difference between these two choices that this also talks about other resources, but this only talks about the land resources. This is the difference. So, which one should you pick? So, was it only about the land resource? Yes, land was scarce because of the growing population, but the other resources were also scarce because of this growing population, and this has been very clearly indicated when it talks about the resources, available resources. So, available resources also include other resources apart from land resources. So, out of these two alternatives, obviously one should go with one. So, one should go with one. That was nice. So, this is the answer, not the second one. And 3 says that various ethnic groups competing for political power. This is irrelevant. You have read that sentence, and political power is not being indicated at. And 4 says that various ethnic groups fighting for their identity. No, identity was not very important for them at that time, only land was important. Land has been highlighted, not the identity. And now let us move to the second question. Now, if you have not done this before, you can pause it and try to attempt it on your own, and now that you have selected your answer, continue watching this. So, it says that according to the passage, the drought at the time of Maya collapse had a different impact compared to the droughts earlier. So, you have read this in the, I think here, let us go to the passage. Here you are talking about this drought and how it was more severe. So, it was more severe because in case of earlier droughts, they had excess lands, uninhabited lands where they could move to, but in case of this final drought, they did not have any land available. So, they could not go anywhere, and they were destined to meet their destiny. And here the question says that how it was different from the earlier droughts. So, because it happened at a time of collapse of the leadership among Mayas. So, no collapse of leadership has been highlighted. Collapse of leadership is not relevant to the drought. It happened when the Maya population had occupied all the available land which was suited for agricultural purposes, and so they did not have any land available for the agriculture, and this was why it was more severe than all the previous droughts. Your answer is 2. And C says, this option says that it was followed by how do we pronounce this, internecine. So, internecine, that is how you pronounce this word. So, it was followed by internecine, and this means, that means destructive for the both the parties involved in a fight. So, when both the parties face severe destruction, this kind of destruction is defined as internecine warfare. So, internecine is something which is damaging for both the parties. So, this drought was different from the previous droughts because it was followed by internecine warfare among Mayans. No, it was not because of this reason that it was different. The reason has already been mentioned in 2. And 4 says that irreversible environmental degradation led to this drought. No, nothing like this has been hinted towards. The clear discussion is that no land, no excess land was available, and that is why it was more severe than the previous droughts. Question 3, it says that according to the author, why it is difficult to explain the reasons for Maya collapse. So, author is actually trying to explain the reasons for Maya collapse, but he also agrees that it is very difficult to point out, to pinpoint the exact reason behind the collapse. So, what makes this very difficult? Because Köppen inhabitants, you find this word in the last paragraph of the passage. So, because Köppen inhabitants destroyed all records of that period, has it been given anywhere in the passage? No, it is not given anywhere in the passage, not even in the last paragraph. So, you can rule it out. And B says that the constant deforestation and hillside erosion have wiped out all traces of Maya kingdom. This is also not true, because if all traces of Maya kingdom have been wiped out because of this and that, then there is no use of archaeologists visiting those sites. So, there must be some evidence, that is why these archaeologists are surviving, they have got a job. So, this cannot be true, and plus this has not been claimed anywhere in the passage. And C says that archaeological sites of Mayas do not provide any consistent evidence. Yeah, it is kind of likely, it looks to be true that the evidence is actually not consistent. For different sites, some other reason is more prevalent, and some other site, another reason is prominent. But it looks to be like you can go with this, but let us read the fourth one. It says that it has not been possible to ascertain which of the factors best explains as to why the Mayan civilization collapsed. Is it true? It is certainly true, and that is what the author is trying to say here in this first paragraph. Here it is only saying, the author is only saying that I think that there are 5 strands, but archaeologists might disagree with me because of this and that reason, and you cannot actually pinpoint the exact reason because of this, because it is not possible to ascertain which of the factors can best explain as to why this civilization collapsed. And yes, it is true, and the author has made it very clear in the first paragraph, and that is why it is very difficult to explain the reasons for Maya collapse. You cannot explain the exact and most accurate reason. So, out of 3 and 4, this 4 one is better than 3, and it explains everything about the passage, and especially the first paragraph, and it is okay. The third one is like okay, because yes, this evidence was not consistent, but still you have a better choice, so go with 4. And this is the last question. Question number 4, it says that which factor has not been cited as one of the factors causing the collapse of Maya society. So, you have read all the 4, I think 5. So, you have read all the 5 strands explained by the author, that overpopulation was the reason, then mismanagement of the resources and population was the reason, and then there were fights, there were warfares, this became the reason, then came the drought was the reason, and then the incompetence of the rulers. That means kings were not focusing on the rulers were not focusing on the real issues, they were like they got indulged in petty things. So, these 5 strands have been given, you already have read it. So, which of these have not been given as a reason for this collapse? So, environmental degradation, has it been discussed? Yes, it has been discussed. So, we are looking for something which has not been cited. So, this has been cited, so it is not the answer. Social collapse actually has not been cited, but increased warfare among Maya people, yes, this has been cited, so we can eliminate this. Obsession of Maya population with their own short term concerns, yes, this too has been cited. That was, I think, the 5th strand according to the author. He said they were not very far sighted, they were very short sighted, and they were indulged in very like petty things, and they were very selfish, and this selfishness also caused the fall of their civilization. So, all 3 have been clearly mentioned, so you can eliminate all 3. No social collapse has been discussed. So, out of, you understand all those 5 strands, social collapse was not one of them. So, this is the answer. Answer is option number 2. So, that is all for now. I might have been a little bit quick in this video because I am actually pressed for time. There is the studio is going to be occupied by someone else. So, I just tried to finish this very quickly. So, if I just missed out on some particular points, so I apologize for that, and for now that is all from my side, and we will see you again with the next video. Thank you very much.